Good morning. Thank you for joining us this morning for an important session on fraud prevention strategies for businesses of all sizes. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Jackie Coffin, and I serve as Senior Vice President and Head of Treasury Solutions Client Success here at BankUnited. In my role, I have the privilege of working closely with businesses to help them optimize financial operations and mitigate risks, like the ones we'll be discussing today. In today's rapidly evolving digital landscape, fraud threats are more sophisticated than ever. Staying ahead requires knowledge, vigilance, and proactive measures. That's why we've designed this session to provide practical insights and actionable strategies to help protect your organization from fraudulent activity. Here's what we'll cover today: current fraud trends impacting businesses, real-world case studies and lessons learned, best practices for securing payments and sensitive data, and how BankUnited supports its clients in fraud mitigation. One quick housekeeping note before we get started. If you have any questions during our session, we'd love to get them from you. So just enter it in the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to address all the questions before we wrap up today. To lead us through these topics, I'm thrilled to introduce Anna Villarini, who's Senior Vice President and Director of Corporate Fraud at BankUnited. Anna brings extensive experience in fraud detection and prevention, and she'll share valuable perspectives on emerging threats and how businesses can safeguard themselves effectively. Anna, thank you for being here. I'll hand it over to you so we can dive right in.
So to be able for all of us within our community to get some experience on the financial fraud of what's happening, it's impacting consumers, it's impacting commercial clients, but it's impacting our entire community. So for that reason, we want to be able to reach out not just to our customers, to anyone that has any type of business and even consumers to be able to share what's transpiring in the industry. To tell you a little bit about BankUnited's corporate fraud division, every financial institution has a team separated or combined. It's very different on how they may have their program. Here at BankUnited, we have a centralized team, and we take financial crime investigations and detection very seriously. So to tell you a little bit about how we approach things, we have an elite team, and it's an elite team of certified and experienced fraud analysts, fraud investigators. Many have been in the industry for more than 25 years. We do have retired law enforcement. Our goal is to be able to provide training, to give the white glove service. When you are a victim of fraud, it is extremely stressful. It's very emotional. So we want to be able to be there to help facilitate not just the reporting of the crime, but we also want to be able to walk you through the remediation process. We are all about our clients. To tell you a little bit about the key 2025 industry reported fraud trends. So banks in general will share what they are experiencing. The FBI also has IC3, which are the reports that I will share in a minute. These are victims who will report any type of cyber type of fraud. Then you have also the Federal Trade Commission, and that all depends on who wants to report. So we compile a lot of the information to let you know who are the main parties that are getting victimized and what types of fraud. So check fraud, account takeover fraud, synthetic identity, payments fraud, and elder and vulnerable abuse are the key fraud trends that we have today. As I'm always often quoted, we have a mail theft epidemic, and that mail theft epidemic has resulted in a check fraud epidemic, especially for commercial customers. So the items are getting intercepted either where you're dropping off the mail or on the receiving end. And those items, as I'll explain in a little bit, are getting sold on the dark web within 24 hours. Account takeovers we'll discuss shortly. It can happen because of a customer falling victim to a scam, or it could be a cyber intrusion. Synthetic identity is a little bit similar to identity theft. Identity theft is when an actual individual has their social security number, their date of birth, and their name compromised. Synthetic identity is like a fake identity. Picture the social security of one person, the name of another, and the date of birth of another. Payments fraud speaks for itself. Any type of cyber intrusion where a payment is originated. And unfortunately, elder and vulnerable abuse continues to be in the top 5 every single year. Our elder, our vulnerable, the industry has now incorporated, it just used to be elderly exploitation, and it is now elder and vulnerable. Picture someone with a brain injury, picture someone who is autistic, picture someone who has any other type of limitation, but is also vulnerable, where fraudsters will take advantage of them. So for that reason, they're now adding the elder and the vulnerable together. So we take a look at what the FBI reported on the Internet Crime Complaint Center in 2024. You're going to see here the volume, over 180. So picture 860,000 complaints. People have lost 16 billion. And I'm going to give you a little bit of what has transpired. And we all need to keep in mind that this all depends on the victims reporting it. So here we have the top complaints based on count: phishing and spoofing. This is why we're always worried about looking at our emails, because it's often spam. And just by clicking on something, it's not just a link, it could also be an advertisement. We're so used to being told when you get an email that you're going to see unusual verbiage or you're going to see misspellings and grammar. The fraudsters are way ahead of us. You may think you are seeing one site and it's not the right site. Spoofing is also something that transpires, and we'll discuss in a little bit. Extortion, personal data breaches, and non-payment, not delivery of the product is the complaints that they are submitting to the IC3. But when we look at losses, this is what we're seeing and we're very worried about. The investment schemes, and I'll discuss that shortly. Business email compromises, which are definitely impacting commercial clients, your tech support, and your personal data breach. So here this breaks it down a little bit onto the domestic and the international types of fraud. So yes, we have Hong Kong, and it tends to be transpiring there, but there are a lot of banks in Hong Kong that are in fact supporting domestic banks and helping during investigations. And take a look at your top 10 states. You've got California, Texas, Florida, and New York. That has been like that for years. Florida's always going to be popping up. Our top 10 states by laws continues to be California. So I think it's really important for us to understand that it's not necessarily that you have a business in these locations. It's just that you may have financial institutions are going to have branches in different locations. The type of companies are going to be spread out, providing services in different places. And sometimes when you're filing a report, it's where did the fraud actually transpire? And the FBI may be sorting it that way. Here are the cyber-enabled frauds. And I think that we pretty much know this. When you look at your trends, it's call center scams. You have your toll scams. At this point, you may be receiving text messages for unusual things. I know that I get calls daily about me being approved for a loan. We also get unusual text messages for anything else. But you have emergency scams, and these are the type of scams that I'll be discussing shortly. But if you observe the number of losses, as we stated, it's over 13 billion, it's 83% of losses. And this just breaks down a little bit, and it's really linking to cryptocurrency. The majority of fraud cases, when you're observing them, the monies end up at the end of the day via cryptocurrency. And law enforcement is getting smarter. Everyone is working together, both in the local and federal level, domestically here within the United States and outside the United States. Many have task forces to be able to help and assist during losses such as these. And if you observe on the cryptocurrency investments, you're going to see that those over 60 is the majority of the complaints, over 1.6 in losses. So this is very important. And then you have your cryptocurrency ATM kiosks. We have the elderly actually being instructed to go to these kiosks. The kiosks even have little alerts to be able to say, are you sure, this is a fraud, just like Zelle. But this is what we're seeing. They're going to kiosks. And this is just a little bit more information on the cryptocurrency fraud. And we wanted to be able to show you, look how things have grown. The fraudsters are getting smarter. There are individuals and businesses that are investing in cryptocurrency. And this is why the losses are rising, because there's more opportunity and more accounts. So the Federal Trade Commission had stated that there was that big jump reported losses of fraud. And I state the Federal Trade Commission because it is where many should be filing, letting them know what's transpiring, primarily consumers. But again, it all depends if you're actually filing a complaint. And we receive public service announcements, most do, and it's public out there for all of you. And here's an example of threat actors spoofing the FBI. So imagine if you're getting Wells Fargo spoofed, if you're going to have a Bank United spoofed or a Chase, anybody else being spoofed, Amazon, UPS, imagine that you have our government agencies that are also getting spoofed. And then in fact, when you click on something, or you answer the phone, you're going to get compromised. So I'm going to cover a couple of different fraud trends, and I'm going to try to be as brief as I can on each. I think some of you may have already experienced some of these. Business email compromise. If I was to speak to any commercial client, I will always talk about business email compromises, especially those companies that are sending email wire instructions and payment instructions via email. And I'll focus on IOTA accounts, I'll focus on title companies. It's extremely important that everyone be aware of what a business email compromise is. So fraudsters are compromising email accounts. Especially Microsoft, you need a dual authentication to be enabled. And what happens is the actual email gets compromised, and they will review those emails. They will learn the behavior of both parties and everyone that's communicating. And when a payment instruction is received, the fraudster is going to intercept it and modify where the monies are going to go. And more often than not, a victim is going to get an email that's either exact email of a victim, the email address, or maybe it's somewhat modified, and they're going to follow the instructions and they're going to send the wire or they're going to send the ACH. But unfortunately, it's fraud. So they identify a target, they groom them, they exchange information. There's always a sense of urgency. And then suddenly the payment goes out the door. So look how many complaints and billions of dollars have been impacted because of this. So here are the most common business email scams. Account compromise. So imagine Bank United, if you need to reset your password, you need to be authenticated. You'd be authenticated via email, or you'd be authenticated via your phone, SMS. It all depends on how you set up your authentication. But if your authentication is via email, imagine that a fraudster can go in, your usernames, many people tend to use the same username, like first letter of your first name, last name right there, and it's going to reset the password. It's going to say, I don't remember my password. Let me click to give me a new password. And where does authentication go? Your email. So the fraudster's intercepting that. Once they're able to obtain access to the account, they can change phone numbers, they can originate payments, they can add signers, they can change administrators, they can do so much. And then payments can get originated. The CEO fraud scam, there's often times that you'll have situations where businesses will receive an email. They would think it's their CEO or perhaps their CFO requesting to generate a payment. I think in most scenarios, many would find that unusual if they don't necessarily always receive an email. But we've also seen companies where it's not out of the norm for an executive to submit a request for a payment. So those are the types of schemes that are transpiring. Real estate related scams are definitely high. So our title companies, real estate companies, anything related to real estate, they're being targeted. Imagine the amounts of money that are flowing through. Imagine the payment instructions that are flowing through. So you're going to see a huge increase in the industry. If we were to break things down when it came to the IC3 reports, you will most definitely see real estate. They will modify the closing documents and modify the payment instructions. And it is very simple to avoid a fraud such as this. One, I'll discuss a little bit further about multi-authentication on your email, but all it takes is a phone call. Anytime you receive payment instructions, you are to call back the individual at the number you have on file, not on an email, and ask them, did you just send me this wire instructions? I just want to be able to review them. Every single business email compromise, which is billions, could have been avoided by a phone call. Bogus invoice, many of you deal with different vendors. You have different third parties that you're going to be getting invoices from. It's the same concept. The fraudster intercepts the invoice, modifies the payment instructions, and the business just sends out the payment. Do the same, conduct a callback. Payroll redirection. Imagine an employee sometimes may reach out to their supervisor or their HR department stating that they moved, stating that they changed bank accounts. It's the same idea. You're getting an email asking you to modify the payments, where that money is going to go. Again, a phone call can help assist that. Business scams, there's a great deal of different types. And I'll discuss it a little bit when it comes to checks. Many businesses will receive a check as a payment and then state, you know what, I forgot. I don't want to do this business with you anymore. I'm not interested. If you can please return the monies to me. So some businesses that fall victim will send the money right back. And then later you find out that the payment you've received was originally fraudulent. Here are the red flags. And back in the day, as I mentioned, sometimes you would see emails where there was misspellings, where it seemed like it was being written by a foreign party. That's no longer the case. They study the behavior of all the parties involved, and it will seem exact as your other party. So the sender's email could be similar, or it can be the legitimate email address because somebody's email was compromised. And you're going to see the modification. One thing I would ask is whenever you do receive any type of payment instructions, I think it's good to ask yourself, does this even make sense? Why are we sending money, or why is the payment going to a bank that we've never heard of? Why is it going to a bank known for cryptocurrency? Why is it going to another party with a completely different name? Now, I get it, especially when we're dealing with title companies. Maybe I want to send the money to my son. But it's not normal. It's not normal that all parties are going to be in a different location and that conversation had not transpired earlier on where the monies were going. You should also take a look at the email and the time, the business hours. Think about the time when it's gonna indicate a sign that it's coming from a foreign location. And there are things to defend against a business email compromise. Number one is to train your employees. Everyone within a company should be trained on not just the business email compromise, but all the variety of financial crimes that can transpire. Review the company's policies and security habits. One of the things that I will always state, in any company, employees should not have access to their personal emails. They should not have access to social media. They should not have the ability to scroll, because there's always that possibility of there being malware or there being a fraudster that's simply waiting for that moment. The business computers should be for business. Even here at Bank United, we cannot access any type of social media. We cannot access our own personal emails. We cannot access anything that can potentially harm Bank United as well as our customers. So we do encourage the use of the business computers only for that purpose. Business security protocols, stay updated on your own customers and vendor payment habits. Ensure that you have segregation of duties within your own company. You don't want one person having access to absolutely everything. Picture, I think of like positive pay, and we'll discuss it in a little bit. I can't be the person submitting the file and also have the ability to approve any of the items that are coming through. Then there's collusion in most cases, but you also want to be able to have somebody else. Again, the emails, the Microsoft dual authentication must be enabled. Anytime that there may be an update to Microsoft, I would highly recommend that you go in and make sure that you do have the appropriate dual authentication enabled and that you have the appropriate security. Report any suspected business email compromise incident to your bank. Whether you have an account with Bank United or anywhere else, it is very important for us as a community that we protect you. So the minute you think that you have a fraud, the minute that the other payee states that they have not received the payment, reach out to your account officer, to your bank immediately. I often say reach out to the bank before you reach out to law enforcement. Banks work with banks, and those are the ones that are going to be able to help facilitate any potential recovery and work that case before the FBI gets involved. And fraud investigators and fraud analysts, they work with law enforcement, so they already have a protocol, and they'll provide additional guidance. Obtaining cyber fraud insurance coverage. I think every company should have this type of insurance. So here for our own clients, we say what to do if and when a business email compromise occurs. One, have a plan. Just as I'm sharing with you things that you should do, have a plan within your company of what you should do anytime you're a victim of any type of fraud, especially a business email compromise. And as you can see, it's contact your bank immediately. So here at Bank United, we have a centralized fraud division. And that fraud division is our detection side, our prevention side, our investigation side. Everything is centralized under one team. So we have a very good relationship with the first line. And the minute that something transpires, there not only are there procedures, we have hotlines, we are available. If someone needed to call me, even as a director, we will get on that call. So the banking team will alert the corporate fraud division for the corporate fraud division to take the necessary action, whether it be securing your account, whether it be conducting a wire recall to try to help you get back that money, and contacting law enforcement. I think it's extremely good to understand that we have relationships with other financial institutions, and we have those relationships with anybody that's fighting financial crime within the industry. If the bank successfully recovers the funds, it'll be returned to the originating account. Sometimes the other bank may provide a different form of payment if recovery is possible. So as I mentioned with account takeover, that is really key. Everything seems to be stepping from the email. So an account takeover can transpire through the different schemes that I will be discussing, but also priority has been, the main focus has been the email. Just as I gave an example here, I don't remember my password. And if you click on, I need to be able to reset my password, that's what happens. We highly encourage you to create complex passwords. I know it's very frustrating because some of you, and myself included, may have the same password for certain things. But think about it. If Facebook has been compromised and you're using the same password, they're going to be able to access anything else you have. And many create passwords that they're going to try to remember. But if one is compromised, it may happen in other applications. So create complex passwords and secure your emails. One of the other things that we want to be able to say is review your bank account statements often. You may not know that something is transpiring until you see your statement. So I think it's really important that you be reviewing more often. Use caution with unsolicited emails, text, and phone calls. I think many of us have experienced unusual text messages and unusual emails and phone calls. And I'll discuss shortly on one of the schemes why I say that that is so important. And the goal is to be able to deceive the victim into disclosing information. Ransomware, I think many of you may be seeing it in the industry. A ransomware is going to completely freeze your computers, your network. You can't do anything. And the goal is to be able to issue a payment. So it is definitely something that can take your company down. That's why I state that it's important to have cyber insurance, but also to have a great network provider that's going to provide intense security. And again, a plan. So here's how the ransomware attack. You have stage one, the attacker sends the phishing email, you click on it, and then the malware infects the system. Next thing you know, the attacker moves within the system and starts changing the accesses and the privileges so you cannot go in. Stage 5, files are encrypted. You cannot obtain access to your own files. Then you see the demand, a ransom payment. It can be in cryptocurrency, it could be in dollars, it can be small amounts, it could be large amounts. Sometimes the fraudster is either one, trying to make money, or they're trying to send a message. So it varies. If the ransom is paid, the attacker may deliver the decryption key, but there's no guarantee. So regardless of ransom payments, the attacker may still release stolen data. What to do if and when you are a victim of a ransomware attack? The initial response and mitigation is to turn off all the devices and disconnect them from the network. Disconnect all external storage, record the details, maybe take a screenshot of the actual request for dollars, request for monies, find the source, and identify the ransomware strain. You may not be able to do it, but the subject matter experts can. So always have a plan in place for any type of potential compromise that can hit your company. Communication and external support. I say contact law enforcement, but it also depends on the type of attack you want, that you want to prevent. Local Secret Service and the FBI field office. So Bank United has a very good relationship with law enforcement. So if you happen to be a commercial client, let's say in Miami or any of our regions, or even if it was in another state, we have enough of a good relationship that we've established where we will reach out to the agency and say, our customer is a victim. Here's what's transpiring. We need your assistance. They do have network intrusion remediation teams. And more often than not, depending on the type of attack, they will visit the client, they will speak to the client. There's certain things that they can and cannot do. Seek professional IT cybersecurity expertise and contact your insurance company if you have it. Why? Because sometimes these insurance companies already have a remediation plan. They already have a party that can assist you. So it's really important that you are familiar with your insurance, you get insurance, and you have this plan. Recovery remediation. I always state not to pay the ransom, but that's really up to you. I understand that this can shut down the business. The reason we say do not pay is because you really do not have any guarantee. So disable the maintenance tasks, re-image infected endpoints so that you can recreate and restore the backup to a clean device. These are the different ransomware fraud prevention tips. Using anti-ransom software, definitely application whitelisting, run regular security testing. I think the network segmentation and having a network provider that has the correct antivirus softwares and the firewalls and that they know how to handle situations like this is extremely important. And the majority of the ransomware attacks are because someone has clicked on a link they shouldn't have clicked on or visited a site that they shouldn't have visited. And this explains a little bit about malware, and I think I'm going to skip through it because I think we're all familiar that it's a virus. It's going to infect your device and it can create a great deal of chaos. Check fraud, as I mentioned, has impacted everyone, consumers and commercial clients. An on-us check is a check that could processed against your account. Counterfeit checks, those are fake checks. Often what transpires is that someone's check will get intercepted in the mail and it could be altered, or they could create a fake check from that check. They can forge the maker's signature. Sometimes the check doesn't even change and it's deposited in another financial institution. The payee hasn't changed, but somebody else endorsed the back of the check. And then you have check deposit fraud. Customer knowingly negotiates a fraudulent check with the intent to defraud the bank, or the customer is issued a fraudulent check. So as I mentioned, we have a mail theft epidemic, and that is what's transpiring. So although law enforcement is trying to do as much as they can, there's only so much that they can do. The checks are being stolen and being held for sale in the dark web and Telegram within 24 hours. Bank United, as many financial institutions have and should have, threat intelligence. So we do have threat intelligence where we obtain information on items that are being sold on the dark web. And the first thing we're going to do every time we're reviewing it is contact our client. Either our client had already been victim and this check is identified, or we've identified this check before it's been sold and we're able to immediately take access to the account, restrict the account so that our customer is not a victim. And that is extremely important. Business check return is what I had mentioned earlier. You may be expecting a payment via check and you go ahead and deposit it into your account and the other party decides, I don't want to do business with you. I don't want to buy that property. I don't want to get the service that you offer. Send me back the money. And then you may, in good faith, send the money via wire and return the money, but you're doing it within 24 hours and next thing you know, that check is getting returned. So we would always encourage you to have a process in place on we are not going to return the money for a certain period of time. Here's the defense against check fraud. Request direct mail pickup at the office. You can register for the bank's services that I'll discuss shortly, which is payee positive pay or reverse positive pay. You also have ACH alerts. Utilize other payment methods. I also would state register for Informed U.S. Postal Delivery Service, and it's free and it is great. Basically, every day you will get an email that's going to tell you what you're going to get in the mail that day. So that way you know that if you're expecting to get a check in the mail, you're going to be on the lookout for it. And if you don't get it, then there's a possibility that they've stolen that check. But this is telling you exactly, gives you an image of what you're going to be seeing in your mail that day. So I think it's important that you take a look at the US Postal Delivery Service and see what you can do to be able to minimize the impact. And you can also mail checks directly at the post office. What to do if and when you're a victim of check fraud. Again, the first thing I always say, contact your bank. Contact your account officer and advise on what has transpired. They will be asking you for additional details. And what's going to happen next is that there's different methods that the fraud investigations team will take to assist. You've only got 24 hours to return a check. So that means that the banks are going to have to work with the banks behind the scenes to be able to assist. Remediation and recovery depends on the type of fraud that has transpired. So a financial institution, when they deposit a check, when they are accepting a check for deposit, they need to ensure that that check is not altered. They need to ensure that the endorsement is adequate. Now, granted, many are depositing these checks via mobile deposit. It's a risk that they are incurring by accepting that item. So if our client reaches out to us and says, John Doe did not receive the check, but the check processed through my account, and I see that it was endorsed with a scribble scrabble, or it wasn't endorsed at all. So in those situations, the fraud investigations team is going to submit a breach of warranty to the other bank requesting the funds to be returned. And as long as our client has reported it to the bank timely, as per your account agreement, we will work with the other bank to try to help recover the funds. Could it take long? Yes, it may take 90 days. During COVID, it took a year because the depository bank is liable, but there's no specific timeline on how they can respond. And this transpires quite a bit. We have zero control over the endorsement. The check fraud claims, we're going to ask to complete an affidavit. We may ask who the intended payee of the check was, filing a local police report, filing a report with the postal inspectors. As far as commercial clients, the account is going to get restricted if they're not on any services to protect that account. A check has the routing number and the account number. They can also do an ACH transaction. So the way I see it, whether you have an account with Bank United or you have an account at another bank, every commercial client should have payee positive pay or reverse positive pay and ACH alerts. This will help detect and prevent that type of fraud. One of the questions that I'm often asked, I think victims, especially, it's money. So they think that the bank is responsible. That's not the case. For check fraud, the bank's liability is for the verification of one's signature. We have zero control over the endorsement, zero control over the payee section. If there's an account takeover and the fraudster bypassed the bank's authentication method and originated payments, again, the bank is not responsible. But on our side of the house, when it comes to the fraud team, we take that case as if it's our own money. It doesn't matter when it comes to the liability. They will take action from day one. They will do everything in their power to be able to help facilitate the recovery of funds. But the bank's not liable for that. This is why we have the authentication, to be able to send you a message to let you know that this is transpiring. If you originate a payment via Zelle, Wire, ACH, or Bill Pay, and it's later found that you were a victim of a scam, the bank's not liable for payments that you originate, that one originates. If I decide that I'm going to send a Zelle payment to another party and I later find out that I did not receive the merchandise, that I'm a victim, the bank doesn't have to pay me back the money. It's the risk that I'm taking. And you have victims today, and I think Zelle sends you like 3 different warnings that you have to acknowledge. A wire. A wire is not a payment that could be easily returned. Once you send out that wire, it's like cash. But the bank is still going to assist in facilitating that recovery. So consumers are protected by Reg E when it comes to debit card fraud, as long as those transactions are reported timely. And I did want to make sure that I added that part about the wires not being reversible. I think sometimes a commercial client across the board, any business, when they send out a payment, they say, I made a mistake. I put an extra digit on the account number. I sent the wrong amount. I need that money to come back. It's not that simple. Once the monies land into an account, even if that account was not entitled to that money, that's not something that we can easily get the monies back. We will submit a wire recall, but the receiving bank has its own obligations. They actually need to seek approval from the account holder. So there's a lot of back and forth things that are transpiring. Although it was a mistake, human error, it's not something that you can easily get the monies back. These are the top fraud scam trends. There's so many out there. It was hard to be able to pinpoint which ones we should put. So I did want to share with you the ones that we've seen more often in 2025. And again, it's not just Bank United. It's when I say we, I refer to the industry as a whole. Jury duty, that was something new. Basically calling you or texting you that you missed jury duty and you now have to pay a fine or you're going to get arrested. You'd be surprised how many people actually fall for that scheme. The toll scam, that transpires. They send text messages claiming that you have uh, an outstanding debt. QR code became fairly new in 24 and 25. If some of you can think about it, when you were going to park your car, it had a QR code. Menus at some restaurants had a QR code. Who would have figured? So many are working with QR codes. Well, now what they're doing is they're putting a laminate over the QR code, and it is malicious. And it's once you click on it, once you're accessing it, instead of you visiting the site you thought you were visiting, you're going into a fake website. Tech support scams. We saw a lot of this during COVID. You suddenly get a pop-up and you may think it's your own employer. You get a pop-up that's going to say, you know, I'm Microsoft or I'm your IT department. I need you to install an upgrade or we need to put some additional protection. We've identified malware and there are victims that are falling for that. You're phishing and you're smishing. I think at this point, there's an ishing for absolutely everything. Scammer sends an email, that's phishing. They send you a text, it's smishing. The whole point is to lure you into clicking on that link. And once you click on that link, you may get malware, but at the same time, they may have access to your phones, to your devices, to anything else. I'm going to skip the imposter piece because I'm going to mention it on another slide. I want to make sure, Jackie, there's no questions in the interim. Okay. Imposter
Right now,
scams.
Anna.
So there's several fraud schemes that are transpiring, and imposter scams kind of falls into the biggest category. You get a call, a text, or an email from someone claiming to be anybody. It could be your friend on Facebook. It could be an attorney that you've done business with in the past. We have a variety of different schemes, and here are some of them. Law enforcement. You'll have victims that will get a call stating that they're from the DA, that your account has been compromised, a bank employee may be involved. We need you to do the following. There's some cases where they'll ask you to remove all of your money from your account in cash and drop it off somewhere. It may tell you we need you to wire the money elsewhere to protect your account. You also have anything from charity to any type of utility, UPS and Amazon. I think I've become an actual Amazon addict. So most of the time you're going to get a text message maybe giving you an update from UPS. I don't click on absolutely anything. You can go directly to the actual site to be able to see whether or not that's a legitimate message. Grandparent scams, this is something that hasn't stopped. And it's no longer about grandparent, but that's what the scheme is called, and it can transpire with any other party. The scammer pretends to be a grandchild or a family member. And they can also be that I claim to be law enforcement or I'm an attorney and your family member is in jail and we need to assist to get him out. What's happening today also is that they're using deep fake. So it sounds exactly like the family member. And many are falling victim to that scam and they're going to go ahead and send the monies. One thing about the Bank Fraud Security Department, it has impacted so many banks, especially in different areas. It impacted Bank United, where the number for Bank United is showing up on the screen. The person impersonates a bank fraud employee and states the following transactions look unauthorized. Could you please verify? And then the party says, yes, that's fraud. Okay, great. I'm going to be sending you a link. I need you to click on it to reestablish your password. Or I'm going to send you a text message and I need you to go ahead and click on here so we can establish your password. Those 2 moments, you have provided access to your account. Sometimes they'll say, we're going to send you a passcode. Go ahead and send me the passcode because I want to verify your identity. That means they've already accessed your account, and the passcode you're receiving is the authentication passcode that Bank United sends. So when these things transpire, it's not about the bank being compromised. It's happening to every single financial institution. You don't have control over the spoofing of the number. It's happening to law enforcement. It's happening to government agencies. The whole point is that no one should be calling to ask you for any personal information or any account information, none whatsoever. And this is what I'm referring to, the spoofing, the caller ID spoofing. It's very simple. For some of us, maybe some are not tech savvy and you think it would be overcomplicated, but for the fraudsters, it's very simple. And you can be, just like now, you may get spam by different phone numbers. It's very simple to do it. So pig butchering emerges as a top threat. The industry came up with the term pig butchering, but it's an investment scheme. Imagine fattening up the actual investment, putting in more money. So a so-called investment manager is going to reach out of the blue and tell you that they have a great opportunity. You're going to make money very quick. And they're going to grab you in any way, shape, or form. It could be pretending that they are someone that you know from social media or a family member. They've compromised your account. You can sometimes receive wrong text messages. That happens all the time. I get high from strangers all the time. Sometimes I feed into it just to get additional information on what their scheme is. But there's more often than not, you're going to get someone sending you a message that says, what do you mean you don't remember me? And that's what they're trying to do. You can meet someone online and surely they start talking about cryptocurrency and investing. It could be a love interest, it could be a friend, it could be another commercial partner. They're going to ask you to be able to invest. And sometimes they will provide you with fake documentation, leading you to believe that you actually have an account open somewhere and here's all of the money that you've made in the last 30 days. So they will provide you with fake documentation. Property deed title fraud is something that's impacting South Florida, but it's also impacting Texas and other areas. And I think it's really important for many to take a look at where they reside. And there are ways that you can protect yourself. So Floridians, for example, may register for property fraud alerts through the Miami-Dade County site, but many others have it as well. And what it's going to do is that, and I would check to see because some states may have it, some may not. If there's been any modification, any record recorded, you will get notified. Back in the day, they used to send it by mail. Imagine, I remember it transpiring where modification was made on my parents and they got a letter a year later. So now they're modifying where you'll receive communication quicker. It is pretty simple, especially for vacant land, to take over the property. The top 5 cryptocurrency related fraud scams that are impacting commercial businesses, and I think this is important. The fake investment, as I mentioned, and I'll continue to say it, funds will quickly leave the bank or the business's control. It's extremely difficult to trace that money, and recovery is nearly impossible because the funds are going through various different means. It can go from, let's say, Bank United to an account at Wells Fargo. That Wells Fargo person could be a victim, and they're instructed to go to another account, and then they're told to open a cryptocurrency account, and then it goes out the door. You may have 10 different victims all linked together on that one scheme until it finally gets to the fraudster. So here you have fraudulent crypto projects or tokens solicit investments. There's a big hype now when it comes to all of this different capability to make money. We're seeing a lot about oil and gas and buying, and many are getting impacted. You know, there's a lot of violations, regulatory and security law violation. You can have losses when it comes to this. Phishing, wallet draining, and smart contract exploit scams. Fraudsters will trick victims into sending crypto to malicious wallets or signing smart contracts with hidden malicious code. There are many of these transactions that are just irreversible. And there's many in the industry that still have limited crypto expertise. I'm shocked to see some that are elderly, and and I look at elderly. I don't even consider 62, which is what South Florida, Miami considers elderly, because I'm almost there. But you can have an 85-year-old being instructed on how to proceed with a crypto exchange. I'm still trying to figure that out when I'm looking at certain machines. So the lack of traditional fraud recovery methods is a challenge. As fraud investigators, we get involved and we learn about all of the different trends, all of the different crypto related types of schemes, but it takes a long time to be able to fully grasp it and understand it so that then you can share that with victims. The crypto is used for money laundering. So I think, I'm not sure whether all of you know, but financial institutions have a regulatory requirement to detect money laundering. The cash in, the cash out, whether or not their customer is committing any type of laundering. Why? Because after 9/11, that's what they pushed more aggressively. Because we don't want funds being used for human trafficking, for domestic and international terrorism, for any type of drug trafficking. So you want to be able to ensure that you're not seeing money getting washed through the bank accounts. Now what's happening is they're using cryptocurrency and they're using mules, what we call victims, as I mentioned. The monies go from one bank to another bank to another bank to another bank before it goes out the door to the bad guy. Fraudsters are using tokens. You have the pump and dump. These are digital assets to raise funds under false pretenses. I think it's extremely important for everyone to be aware that the goal is to steal your money, to deceive you. The key risks are investor loss, regulatory scrutiny, reputational harm, and exposure to your business and your business clients. So when it comes to deep fake, this has been a serious concern. Many think it doesn't happen to them, that this is only as it is on TV. The reality is that the deep fake is transpiring across the board. We do have unusual cases that an investigator may come across where the client thinks that they've been speaking for the last 6 months to a celebrity. They will actually think this because this is what they're seeing on a screen. Deepfake is real. They are mimicking people's voices. When I get a phone call that I don't recognize the number, I don't even say hello. And if you were to make a movement, automatically you'll hear a recording. That can happen. If you are a commercial customer that makes a lot of money, that you have a lot of visibility within your community and elsewhere, they're going to see you on LinkedIn. They're going to see you if you're on videos. They're going to be able to mimic that. So it's going to happen. They may call you and record your voice. It's extremely scary, but it's very real. Deepfake protection is to spot the red flags. When you're talking to somebody, you're going to see some little movements that don't make sense. But does the story sound dramatic? You know, real celebrities are not going to be sending messages to strangers asking for cash, but the goal is that they will establish this relationship for a certain period of time until you think it's real. And that's when the requests for payments will start to happen. They will encourage individuals. Scammers rely on urgency. That's the main thing. A second opinion can stop a scam from progressing. Always question when something's not right. I know we've been hearing since we were kids to we'll go with our gut. And as we get older, we need to continue to go with our gut, but more often than not, we don't. So artificial intelligence has been powering these scams, so it's extremely important. Verify everything before you act. So as you can see, all of the different things that I've mentioned, from email hacking to ransomware attacks to deep fakes, this is all an introduction to cyber. Some of us grew up in a time where this just wasn't possible. This has made our lives easier, but it's also made it easier for the fraudsters. Watch for red flags in any type of communication. Odd phrasing, unusual inconsistencies, the inability they're telling you that they do not want to go on camera, they're traveling, they can't talk to you, they can't get on video. You're going to see some glitches. It's extremely important that you question, does this make sense? Any type of urgency is important. Now, I get it. You want to close on a real estate deal, and I keep using real estate as an example because it's a good one. and the buyer, you want to hurry up. Okay, there's a difference between hurrying up because it's 30 days and calling every single day. The reason they're so urgent is that they don't want to be detected. Educate yourself on any type of technology, deepfake technology. Enable two-factor authentication, so add extra layers. I wish that I can say stop using email as an authentication, but I think customers want to have an option. They don't want to be forced to do SMS. If I had a business, I would not be using email for authentication. Use security software. Invest in reputable antivirus and anti-phishing software. So here's a section that I don't know if you want to, Jackie. This is what we offer as Bank United's protection. And again, your financial institution may or may not have this, but we take fraud prevention very seriously. An ACH transaction can transpire by simply the routing number and an account number. So it's extremely important that you set up on ACH alert services so that you can get notified when there's an unusual transaction. There may be commercial clients that do not want ACH transactions to process at all. Reverse positive pay is that a commercial client will be sending the entire file of their checks that they issue. And the following day, anytime that there's items coming through for payment, you would be seeing them and you would be authorizing them. You would have an opportunity to review those checks to make sure that I wrote this check to John Doe. Why does it say something different? Maybe I want to look at the back of the check and be able to make sure that it was endorsed accordingly. What if it's a check with the same check number? So you're going to be seeing all of your items, and as a business, you would be decisioning your checks. Payee positive pay services. So you'd send a file, and if an item comes through for payment and it doesn't match your file, I wrote the check to LA Law, and when the item comes in, it's not for LA Law. It's going to generate an exception and have you review to decision that item. And I think these are critical. I'm going to continue to say that no commercial customer should have an account without these services, regardless whether it's Bank United, whether it's in another bank. Most definitely, they should have that service. We have additional online banking customer security options like security challenge questions, passcode delivery. You can set up your account on certain alerts, default authentications. Tread lightly. So we do request dual authentication for wires and ACH. You should not have the same person doing everything. As much as we trust our own employees, you need to protect yourself. You want to add anything, Jacqueline, to the security and transaction managements and protections that we offer Bank United?
I think that's perfect. The one thing that I would just emphasize is the payee positive pay part. And we put the statistic out there, but 44% of the check fraud that we're seeing is on the payee line. So if we aren't verifying the payee line for you or your other institutions, you're actually not protected on the payee line. So someone could take the check. If it's made payable to Mike Smith, I could technically whitewash that and make it payable to myself, Jackie Coffin, and then go ahead and and regular positive pay wouldn't catch that. So for our existing clients, we recently did a campaign encouraging our customers who are on regular positive pay without payee protection to upgrade their services. So this is something that I would encourage you all to do if you haven't already, but a majority of our positive pay is detecting the payee line as well.
Yes. So I only see one question, but I want to make sure. If you have any questions, don't be shy. We're more than happy to assist. Okay, let's see.
And these are more comments too, which I'm loving hearing. So
Yeah,
thank you for your feedback. I'm seeing this is such great information. Positive Pay saved us several times. So really more comments that I'm just kind of answering back here, but no questions yet. So feel free to type it over in the Q&A at the bottom, and Anna or myself we're happy to answer for you.
Yeah. So one thing, banks used to offer positive pay. That was by itself. Positive pay was just looking at the dollar amount and the check number. Then there's payee positive pay. So it's looking at the actual payee, the dollar amount, and the check number. And Bank United is no longer selling the positive pay by itself. Why? Because people were still getting victimized, the industry as a whole, because what they're doing was changing the payee. So most definitely, I would recommend the payee positive pay. So how do I confirm we have payee positive pay? Your account officer could most definitely take a look and see if you're not getting a file daily, if you're not sending a file, then you may not have it. But we're going to follow up with you. I believe we do have other Bank United employees that are on this group. So if you can send an
Yeah,
email to your account officer or Jacqueline so that we can verify for you if you have it.
for sure. I'm happy to look up your account if you want to be sure you have full protection. I will be sending a follow-up email to everyone that's participated in today's webinar, and you'll have all my contact information there as well. So I'm happy to assist with that. Anna, this is a good question too. It says, are check payments from the bank, for example, if I use Chase to pay my bills, are they safe?
If you're doing it online, it's very different than if you're sending it by mail. Not going to
Well,
say that you're
I
easy.
think that's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
So if, and our customers wouldn't know this, if that customer's, if let's say your vendor, you're trying to pay AT&T, for example, if AT&T is accepting from Chase's bill pay a digital payment, it is more safe.
Yeah.
However, if I'm the landscaper, they're still cut, and I don't have a digital payment method. On the back end for bill pay, they would be cutting a check and sending it. So there's still that risk of mail fraud. I actually have a very good friend who owns a business, and that happened to him. And it was months before for him to debate that. So I would say I agree, Anna, but also anything that gets put in the mail, there's always that chance that it can be stolen and unfortunately used in a fraudulent way.
Yeah. I do see that some are asking for the deck. No, we will not be sharing the deck, but if you would like, and you would like for us to be able to do some training, especially myself, for your company, reach out to Jacqueline. Let's see if we can coordinate that because I know it's very hard to go back now and speak to your employees and share this information. And the deck is pretty detailed, but I wanted you to have an opportunity to visualize that. Let us know, especially if you're our customer. When you are our customer, we are more than happy to be able to set up a Zoom call with all of your employees because I think it's critical. It could be your assistant. It doesn't matter the role and the position that that person has. Because if we give them a training, they could put things into context. Something unusual happens and something will click.
There's also something here, Anna, that I'm not able to type the answer. The question is, how do I verify myself online if I have pay positive pay as opposed to regular? The straight answer is you can't. Only we can see what you're
Right.
permitted for in the background. So, like I said, I'll send an email with a follow-up. Feel free to reply back to me and just say, I want to confirm what type of positive pay I have, and we'll go ahead and we'll confirm the details for you.
Yeah. Sending, okay, the next question I see, Venmo, a safe way to send money. Honestly, when it comes to Venmo, Cash App, and Zelle, what's transpiring is whether or not you've been victim to a scheme and you're sending the payment and you're not getting whatever you were promised to get, and you can't get that money back. So, for example, Bank United's consumer side has Zelle. If in fact your account has not been taken over and you are able to access it and it's you sending the Zelle payment, it's going to give you like 3 different warnings to make sure that you're not a victim of a scheme. And that's the component that you not be victim. So when it comes to safe, it's kind of like a two-way, right? Did they compromise your account or are you a victim of a scheme sending the money? If you're sending the money to a fraudster, I would still contact the financial institution because they may be able to request a return of funds and they may have funds available in the other account. I would probably encourage you to use Zelle more than the others. We started offering it now, and I was very skeptical myself, but the security measures that we have placed are very effective. So I switched personally from the Cash App to the Venmo to the Zelle. Okay, whoever would like the employee training, by all means, reach out to us, send us a message so that we can coordinate. Many will say that as a director of a bank, how do you have time to be able to do these webinars? We don't have time. But the way I look at it is that we need to protect our community. We need to protect our customers. We need to protect our businesses, whether they have an account at Bank United or they don't. And I feel like it's so much easier to prevent it than it is when we're chasing money and trying to recover. And as our communities, if you are impacted by a very big fraud, I think some of you may have seen the impact on attacks that had transpired where it impacted flights and it impacted different things. We don't want that impacting you. We don't want that impacting any consumer, any commercial customer, our community at all. So I figure that it's better to give the training and help prevent.
Okay, Anna, it looks like we're at time. It also looks like we're out of questions. So like I mentioned, I will be sending a follow-up email to everyone. I thank you so much for investing your time today to learn how to protect your business from fraud. I mean, these are real life instances, things that we're seeing all day, every day. This is all Anna does all day, every day is handle these types of situations. At Bank United, we're committed to being your partner in fraud prevention and mitigation. If you have any questions at all, if you want to explore how we can support further, don't hesitate to reach back out. But I'll just encourage you to stay vigilant and informed. And thank you again for being a part of this conversation. We look forward to working together to keep your business safe. Thanks again and have a great day, everybody.